At 6:11 p.m. on January 24, 2023, police in Duxbury, Massachusetts, received a 911 call about a woman who had jumped from a second-story window. That woman was 32-year-old Lindsay Clancy. What first responders found inside the house would turn a quiet Massachusetts neighborhood into the center of one of the country's most disturbing criminal cases. 3 children were inside: 5-year-old Cora, 3-year-old Dawson, and 8-month-old Callan. None of them would survive the night. But the story of Lindsay Clancy is more complicated than a simple murder investigation, because the case now centers on a question that has divided prosecutors, defense attorneys, doctors, and the public. Was Lindsay Clancy a mother who deliberately killed her children? Or was she experiencing a psychiatric crisis so severe that she could no longer understand or control what she was doing? The answer is now being argued before a Massachusetts jury. Before January 24th, Lindsay Clancy was not known publicly as a murderer. She was a wife, a mother of 3, and a former labor and delivery nurse. To people who knew the family, Lindsay was deeply devoted to her children. But after the birth of her youngest child, Callan, her mental health began to deteriorate. In the months leading up to the killings, Lindsay sought psychiatric care multiple times. She reported anxiety, depression, hopelessness, sleep problems, and increasingly disturbing thoughts. She also received several changes to her psychiatric medications. And according to testimony presented at trial, Lindsay later described feeling disconnected and out of it while taking Prozac. By late 2022, the people around Lindsay were seeing a woman who was struggling. She sought additional help, including psychiatric treatment at McLean Hospital in early January 2023. But after leaving the hospital, she returned home. And just weeks later, the family's world would collapse. On the afternoon of January 24th, Lindsay was home with her 3 children. Her husband, Patrick Clancy, left the house to pick up food. What happened inside the house during the time he was gone is the central event of the prosecution's case. According to prosecutors, Lindsay strangled all 3 children. Cora and Dawson were found unconscious in the basement and later pronounced dead. Callan was transported by helicopter to Boston Children's Hospital, where he remained alive for several days before he also died. But the defense does not dispute that Lindsay was responsible for the deaths. Instead, the defense is asking the jury to consider a very different question. Was she criminally responsible for what she did? Lindsay has pleaded not guilty by reason of insanity. Her defense argues that she was suffering from a severe psychiatric condition, including what experts have described as postpartum psychosis. The defense also argues that her treatment and rapidly changing medications contributed to her deterioration. One of the most important witnesses in the trial is Dr. Jennifer Tufts, the psychiatrist who treated Lindsay for months before the killings. Tufts testified that Lindsay suffered from depression and hopelessness, but she did not observe signs of psychosis during their appointments. She also testified that Lindsay denied suicidal and homicidal thoughts during their final appointment, one day before the killings. But the defense has attacked the quality of that treatment. During cross-examination, defense attorney Kevin Reddington questioned Tufts about short telehealth appointments, computerized documentation, medication changes, and whether she had enough information to recognize what was happening to Lindsay. Tufts also acknowledged during questioning that she did not know Lindsay had called a suicide hotline twice. Then there is Patrick Clancy. He is not simply a witness in this case. He is the father who lost all 3 of his children, and his view of Lindsay has made this case even more difficult to understand. Patrick has spoken publicly about Lindsay's mental illness and has expressed forgiveness toward her. That does not determine the verdict, but it reveals something that is often missing from true crime stories. The people closest to a tragedy can see it in ways the rest of us never will. To understand the defense, you have to understand postpartum psychosis. It is not the same thing as ordinary postpartum depression. Postpartum psychosis is a rare psychiatric emergency that can involve hallucinations, delusions, severe confusion, and a loss of contact with reality. And in the most severe cases, a person can become unable to accurately understand what is happening around them. The defense says something like that happened to Lindsay. The prosecution says the evidence does not support that conclusion. Prosecutors argue that the killings were deliberate. They point to Lindsay's actions before and after the deaths and argue that she understood what she was doing. Their argument is essentially this: mental illness does not automatically eliminate criminal responsibility. The question is whether Lindsay's mental state actually prevented her from understanding the wrongfulness of her actions or from controlling her behavior under the legal standard the jury must apply. The defense sees the same timeline very differently. They argue that Lindsay repeatedly asked for help while her condition deteriorated. They point to medication changes, suicidal thoughts, insomnia, anxiety, and what they describe as escalating psychiatric symptoms. And they argue that the healthcare system failed to recognize how dangerous her condition had become. That is not a finding of the criminal court. It is the defense's theory, and the jury will ultimately decide whether the evidence proves it. This is what makes the Lindsay Clancy case so difficult. There are two stories happening at the same time. In one story, a mother deliberately kills her 3 children. In the other, a severely mentally ill mother loses contact with reality and commits an unimaginable act while profoundly impaired. The facts surrounding the deaths are horrific, but the legal question is much narrower. What was happening inside Lindsay Clancy's mind at the exact moment she killed her children? That question is now being answered piece by piece inside a Massachusetts courtroom. Witnesses have described Lindsay's behavior, her treatment, her medications, her relationship with her children, and the events surrounding January 24th. And the defense continues to challenge whether the medical system recognized the severity of her condition before it was too late. As of August 2026, there is still no verdict. But beyond the courtroom arguments, beyond the psychiatric debate, and beyond the headlines, there are 3 children at the center of this case: Cora, Dawson, Callan. They were 5, 3, and 8 months old. They had no role in the arguments over medication, diagnosis, criminal responsibility, or the law. They were simply children. Lindsay Clancy's trial is still unfolding. The prosecution wants the jury to see a deliberate killing. The defense wants the jury to see a catastrophic psychiatric breakdown. And somewhere between those two versions of the story is the question the jury must ultimately answer. Was Lindsay Clancy legally responsible for the deaths of her children? Or was she so severely impaired by mental illness that the law should hold her responsible in a fundamentally different way? We don't know the answer yet. And until the jury reaches a verdict, nobody outside that courtroom can honestly claim to know exactly what happened inside Lindsay Clancy's mind. What we do know is that 3 children died. A family was destroyed. And a case that began as a horrifying murder investigation has become something much larger. A confrontation between mental illness, medicine, motherhood, and the criminal justice system. Because sometimes the darkest question in a true crime case isn't who committed the crime. It's whether anyone saw the darkness coming. And if they did, why nobody could stop it. And this story is far from over.